when you think about good things, your mind produces more good things to think about. If you think about a lot of times when we start to get in the negativity spiral, all of a sudden we start seeing more negative things.
So, hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Marc. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I want to give a quick introduction to Heath. Heath has been a big advocate for Take 2 Minutes. Heath and I talk frequently. Heath also provides quite a few videos for Take 2 Minutes, which are available in the video section. On and above both of those, Heath is a professional coach. I think certified professional coach, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Heath?
Yep, correct.
And his company is Rise Over Run Coaching, RORcoaching.com, correct?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, you want to talk about that just briefly?
Sure. About 3 years ago, I threw a whole bunch of different trials, if you will, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Actually ran across coaching, personal coaching, life coaching, if you will. And through experiencing that myself, saw how much of an impact that had on me. And I thought there was no way I could keep it to myself. So I studied, I became a certified high performance coach, started a coaching business, and have helped individuals now actually around the world on their high performance journey. So that's what I do. And that's where I really found my purpose.
So when I hear that, I think more professional coaching. Can you talk more about how you help people or what you're doing to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I really focus on is what I call high performance coaching. I've been certified through the High Performance Institute. And really, we talk about 5 key pillars of high performance. And those pillars are clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and then influence. And really helping people professional, and then what I would call non-professional. I've helped stay-at-home moms as well, which is a extremely underappreciated job, if you will. And so really helping my clients say, here's where I'm at and here's where I want to go. How can I get there? What does that look like? A lot of times people come and say, I think I know where I want to go, but I'm not sure. And so we'll spend a lot of time on just clarity. Who are you? Who do you want to become? And then how do you get there? Because it's not always about just the end destination. It's about who you become along the way. And that's really what I like to help people with as we journey through that.
Good. So in hearing that, I think it's much more than just professional coaching. I mean, the pillars you talked about, I think could apply towards personal life or anything you want to do, and not just professional coaching. So I get how it's more life coaching than professional. It's good to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, Heath was a youth pastor in the past. And I think a lot of the information Heath has shared with me about his youth pastoring has helped with areas of Take 2 Minutes. For a good example is the youth messages. A lot of people don't know that Take 2 Minutes has a complete subset of youth messages that are more targeted to our younger users. And that was an idea of Heath's. Can you maybe expand upon your youth pastor days and how you like to help people in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on staff at a couple different churches for a little over almost 3 years, or probably right around 3 years. And the one thing that stuck out to me about working with youth is that all that they really want is just a place that they can feel loved, is a place that they can feel safe. A lot of them are able to get that at home, but there's a lot of kids that can't. And so really what I found and where I really like to focus is building relationships with teens, giving them that safe place to come, giving them that ear that will just listen, not judge, not condemn, not come down hard on them, but really just be there as kind of like a sounding board. Let them talk, listen, provide guidance if needed and if necessary. And so that's whenever, Marc, you and I talked, and whenever I first really interacting with Take 2 Minutes, I've got 2 teens myself. And the messages that Take 2 Minutes provides are fantastic. But whenever I was talking to my kids about it, they were like, Dad, these are great, but they're too many words. Some of them are too long. And it just they haven't had the life experiences that we have. I mean, I'm 43. They just haven't had all of those life experiences yet. In some ways, they've had way more than me at the age that they're at now. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have messages that were targeted to youth, talking about self-esteem, talking about friendship, talking about self-awareness as they come into their own self, and just really the bottom line, loving themselves and loving others. So that's kind of where that all stemmed from.
And Heath helped write many of the youth messages that are now in Take 2 Minutes. I don't remember how many he provided, but it was a large amount of the youth messages we have in there. And I think your message around youths just want to feel loved, I think that's probably a common theme amongst people. I mean, it's, you were focusing it on youths, but I think a lot of people just need a little bit of that. It's, feeling compassion from other people, and youths, I don't want to say deserve it more than others, but definitely they're more influenced by that at a younger age. So sometimes the activities in Take 2 Minutes can help that, but it's also working with someone to get that feeling as well. Yeah.
And I really think that I know what you mean. Youths don't necessarily deserve it more. Everybody deserves it.
Everyone deserves it. Yeah.
But I think so many times that if we don't get that love, support, encouragement, mentoring as we are growing up, then there's more people that need that when they get older, as opposed to if you get that as you're growing up, you can then pass that on to somebody else. You can then mentor, love, teach those younger than you. And so that's really trying to set that foundation just in life, I think is a good thing to do.
Right. And this initially wasn't meant to be an ad for Take 2 Minutes. But now I'm thinking about it, I want to expand upon your children and using Take 2 Minutes. A lot of people don't know that Take 2 Minutes does have groups functionality, which will allow a parent to invite their children to a group and work with their children on these well-being activities. If you want them to meditate or gratitude journal or 3 good things, whatever you want them to do, you can suggest or even push these activities to your kids, and then you can check in to see if they're doing the activities. One of the privacy areas are you can't look at their entries, which is really purposeful. We want the children to think or to know they can enter things into their journal without their parents reading it. If they want to share with you, that you can ask them to do so. If they want to, they can, but ultimately that privacy is still there so they can enter whatever they want to enter. So with all that said, how have you encouraged your kids to use Take 2 Minutes, or do they still use it, or how have you worked with them?
Yeah, they do. We actually have I'm not sure if it's called a family plan or a group plan. So my wife and I are both of us get the adult messages, if you will, the original old style Take 2 Minutes.
OG.
The OG, which we love. But we've encouraged our kids and we helped our kids to sign up. I invited them to the group. They accepted, and they get the daily messages as well. Sometimes they will mention them to us. Other times they won't. But knowing that they have those words being poured into them on a daily basis as a parent is very helpful for me. We have also at times encouraged them to do the 3 good things. I do that personally every night. I record what are 3 good things that happened to me throughout the day.
Oh, nice.
And I also go through and do, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for. So, but with the kids, with my teens, they get the messages daily. We will do family activities for a certain amount of time, maybe a week or 2, on 3 good things. And then on occasion, I love the meditation. I was telling you just before this, I did one last night, and I fell asleep to it. And it was a beautiful thing. So I will encourage them to do different types of meditations or breathing exercises as well. It's just a whole host of tools that can be beneficial for people of all ages. So that's one reason that I really love it.
Good. Do you know which type of meditation? Did you request one or use a daily one? Do you remember how you did it? Because you can request one.
I did a daily one.
Okay.
I don't, to be honest, I'd have to go back and look, but right. I do that. But the other one that I really like is the anxiety one. So
There's a bunch
Just
of
there's so many different tools that I don't think people understand. So while it's not meant to be a commercial for Take 2 Minutes, it's a phenomenal product.
Thanks.
And tool.
Regarding 3 good things, that's obviously another component we offer, but outside of Take 2 Minutes, the 3 good things exercise can be done so many ways by people. And I think it's a good exercise for people to recognize you don't have to use Take 2 Minutes to participate in a 3 good things activity. We just try to promote it by sending you a reminder to do it every night for 15 days. But again, aside from Take 2 Minutes, let's talk about that activity because I do think it is such a valuable activity. The way it works, and I'm going to let you give any feedback you have, but my understanding from talking to the psychologists I've spoken with is if at the end of your day, you reflect on 3 good things that either happened to you, you witnessed, or you partook in the activity, whatever it is, just the remembrance of 3 good things at the end of the day, put your mind into a positive mindset. When you fall asleep, your subconscious works on that positivity to, for lack of better terms, create more positivity. And the studies I've read, at least, and the psychologists I've spoken with say, if you do this for 15 days, it has a more profound effect on your mental well-being in a positive fashion than taking SSRIs. And there's a lot of data to show that. And so it really helps you. And you can do it literally. And I'm curious how you do it, but you can do it via Take 2 Minutes. You can do it with pen and paper, or you can do it by just sitting and reflecting on the day and thinking of those good things in your head. So I want you to talk about 3 good things, what you know about it for a moment.
Yeah. So I've read probably a lot of the same studies. It's interesting from what I've read, and I'm not licensed or trained in any of this, but from just reading, when you think about good things, your mind produces more good things to think about. If you think about a lot of times when we start to get in the negativity spiral, all of a sudden we start seeing more negative things. It's kind of like whenever I've heard, I bought a car and I really wanted a Chrysler 300 because I thought, you know what? I never see those anywhere. I love driving them. They ride really smooth. So I said, I'm going to get a Chrysler 300. And I kept thinking about that car. Well, what do you know? Every time I went somewhere, I kept seeing Chrysler 300s. And it wasn't because they're brand new and everybody has them. It's because that's what my mind was thinking about. And that's what I was looking for. And it's a lot like that with the 3 good things. If you think about the good things, then that's what you will continue to develop in your mind, your subconscious, and even your conscious mind. It will start to look for those good things. And so that's why, for me, that's been kind of a game changer. If I've noticed, even when it comes to negativity or anxiety or problems, issues, if I focus on that, that's what I get more of. But if I focus on good things, that's what I get more of. And so it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. There are times I do use Take 2 Minutes, but I actually journal every night with pen and paper. And so I journal, I record how I'm feeling throughout the day. I record 3 things that 3 good things that happened or that I helped happen or helped create. And then I also write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, which are a little bit different for me. And then I just write about my day. And so it's been interesting to be able to go back and read those from, say, the past month or so, because you can actually almost go back in time to when you wrote those and remember that. And then that kind of also puts you in a good mood. It raises your spirits so that you can continue on.
Right. That's good stuff. And that's good. I've heard a lot of people actually journaling. It's interesting to me because I've always been bad at putting pen to paper. I'm bad at writing. I think I started typing at a young age. So for me, naturally, I like going to things like Take 2 Minutes because the typing and texting is easier for me. But I've read and heard of so many people who are very successful people who do write and journal every day. So I think either way, as long as you're getting some of this stuff down and recognizing it, it's a good exercise for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I really like that you just said is that some people are, I'll call analog, and they like pen on paper, and some people are digital.
Right.
And the beautiful thing is with Take 2 Minutes, now you have the opportunity to do either or both. So it fills a nice little void.
So a common topic you and I have talked about often in the past, I think it's a valuable topic to talk about because a lot of people experience this, is the topic of anxiety. I've had conversations with Jamie, who is also talks to me occasionally. We've recorded some of his conversations about anxiety. I call mine, and if people are watching this, have watched previous ones, you'll see me say this in the past. I call it situational anxiety. Sometimes when I'm in situations, I can feel some anxiety coming on. And I know you have talked about similar feelings in the past. And I think it's just good to talk about these things. I think a lot of people experience this, and I get a lot of messages via Take 2 Minutes of people who have anxiety and also have depression. And I think sometimes having these kind of videos to let people know others are experiencing this are good to have. I'm going to have a few more things to say before I let you talk. I apologize for the long intro, but I think the anxiety for me has been interesting, and I don't want to speak for you. I want you to speak for yourself. But me, I didn't start experiencing it until later in life. I could say that from the time I can remember up through 48 or so, I didn't even know what anxiety was. Really, I had really no experiences with it. And then COVID came around. We got locked in our homes, and I think that separation from people and doing things, and then the fear of COVID helped bring some of it on to me. And so since then, I've been kind of dealing with a little bit. So why don't you talk about your experiences just a bit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. We've had a lot of the same experiences up until 2020, COVID. I was 40, I think at that time, right around 40 years. The first, say, 39 and a half or 40 years of my life, I don't really ever recall anxiety being an issue for me personally. Now, I knew people that had anxiety. I didn't understand what it was like. I couldn't relate. But I do think that with the pandemic, with being closed in, with a lot of the fear of the unknown, it caused me to start to experience different types of anxiety or different symptoms of anxiety. And probably even if now looking back, led into some depression as well. Right. And so I would agree that mine would be situational as well. I don't know of medical terms of what that might be or anything like that, but different situations. But I think it did have a lot to do with being away from people. I mean, we are, as human beings, we're created for community. And without that community, without being able to talk with people outside of your four walls, can create a little bit of separation anxiety, which children a lot of times have. But I think we as humans experience that separation anxiety as well, being away from people. So I do experience that now, fewer and far in between. But yeah, for a couple of years, it was a real part of my, I'd say almost everyday life.
So let's talk about what we experience. I'll start, and then you can do the same thing. And I also want to talk about what we experienced, but also what we did to help ourselves. Mm-hmm. So for me, kind of just what you said, anxiety was something new for me. I didn't even know what it was. The feelings I can convey that I had were, one, sometimes like a tightness in the chest. And I think I even went to the ER a couple of times initially thinking, maybe it's a heart attack, who knows, which kind of probably led to more anxiousness. But it was a tightness, almost like I couldn't get a deep breath. And then I also had a few situations where I was out, and this was right in the heat of COVID. Like I had to go to the store. I vividly remember one situation. It was around the holidays in 2020. COVID was still a concern. I went to the grocery store and it was just packed. And so I felt this, tightness of chest, difficult breathing, had my mask on, which isn't something we're accustomed to. I kind of felt weird about it. And standing in line for the grocery store, I kind of felt almost like a panic attack coming on, to the point where in line, I took the cart to the side and I knew the store. So I said to the manager, do you mind watching my cart? I need to step outside. And I went outside and took my mask off. And I remember just taking some deep breaths and kind of calming back down before I can go check out. So, for me, it was, like I said, difficulty breathing. And I had occasional time where I even had a little lightheadedness or I felt a little dizzy, which also probably brought on more anxiety because the whole idea of, oh my gosh, I'm going to faint in public probably made me more stressed out as well. So that was some of my experiences. Can you talk about any of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So my main thing was around my breathing. It was the way that I try to tell people, because people are like, well, what do you experience? Well, I had a difficulty breathing. And I said, oh, like asthma. No, it wasn't like asthma. I could get breaths in, but I almost couldn't. It felt like I couldn't get my diaphragm to flip over. It's kind of like when you start a car in the cold and it revs and it tries to turn over, but it never can. And then eventually it'll just flip over and it'll start. That was really one of my key things is I just had a hard time breathing. And I could actually be sitting at home watching a movie and I would have it. I could be out at church, sitting in a service, not even by a lot of people. At the time, our family of four sat together and no one in front of us, no one behind us, by a row or two, and no one to the side. And I would just start to feel anxious. Not really ever able to attribute it to any particular trigger, if you will. But those were my symptoms. Then the other symptom was I would start to get in my mind something was wrong, and that would make me even more anxious. So kind of that perpetual going down that slippery slope made it worse and worse and worse until I could actually sit there and tell myself, you're okay.
Right.
Nothing is wrong. Try to get a deep breath. And it would really take a conscious effort to try to pull myself back up, if you will, out of that slippery slope.
Do you think any of the times, like you mentioned the church example, do you think any of it was the what if syndrome where you're thinking, what if this happens or what if this happens? I think it's called the what if syndrome.
Yeah.
That could have been the onset.
That could have been. Typically that wasn't usually the onset, but that was followed very closely immediately after. Oh, I can't breathe. What if I need to get up and leave? Oh, I can't breathe. What if I get up and I need to walk outside and I pass out? Much like what you said.
Yep.
So it was the weirdest things. It was really, at the time, I felt it was just a huge unknown. Like I never know when it's going to happen.
Right. And you're spot on. I think you're correct in my mind. I replayed back in my head. The what ifs happen generally after the onset of whatever the initial trigger was. So that's completely accurate for me as well. And then for me, they've decreased definitely as time has gone by. And I think part of it is recognizing for me when it's happening and trying to do things like live in the present. This is something I've talked about with Jamie before as well. If you are living in, thinking about the what if or the possibilities, you're worried about the future. But if you live in the present and recognize things around you, that helps. And also recognizing that it may happen and that, you're telling yourself, I'm going to be okay. This may be a little bit of anxiety. Just breathe, try to calm down. And when I do have ones now, I'm usually, I don't remember any recent situations where I wasn't able to circumvent it before it started getting too bad. And sometimes I will, practice one of the mini breathing exercises, which I've learned through Take 2 Minutes, such as breathing in through my nose and counting to, I think it's, 7 on the intake and then holding it for a few seconds and then breathing out. It's a 4, 7, 8 breathing. So I guess it's 4 in, 7 hold and 8 out. And just doing that a few times helps calm me down. So, what are some of the things you had done to help when you had those situations?
Yeah. So part of what I really did is I took some time and I wrote down, I journaled when I had them. And I do a lot of reflective, not to your point about not living in the future, but also not wanting to live in the past. But I think recognizing maybe what was going on one of the things that I found for me personally was I believe that my caffeine intake had quite a bit to do with it.
Right.
And so I personally have switched over to decaffeinated coffee.
Okay.
Now, is that a end all be all cure all? No, that's what worked for me personally. But it was interesting because the more I read about that, caffeine will give your body the same signs and symptoms as what anxiety is, which is increased heart rate, increased respiration, increased body temperature. And your mind doesn't know if you took coffee or if you're having anxiety. And so it treats it as anxiety. So for me, that was a big thing. The other thing that I have really done is when I realize that I'm having some anxiety come on, I focus on breathing from my diaphragm. Because a lot of times what I noticed is whenever I was having my trouble breathing, I was breathing from my chest and I wasn't getting a deep breath. They were very shallow breaths. And so even breathing from my diaphragm, just doing deep breathing really helped calm my mind. It seemed like it got more oxygen in my mind and in my brain, which then allowed me to really calm down.
We have a great meditation. It's one of the anxiety meditations by Marissa that talks about diaphragm breathing. I think we've actually had a few breathing exercises, which are diaphragmatic breathing and take 2 minutes. But can you explain what it means to breathe from your diaphragm? And I have an example if you don't have one.
Yeah, sure. So the way that I've done this is I personally lay flat on my back so that I'm elongated, so that I'm not bent over at my waist sitting. And I actually put my left hand on my heart and I put my right hand on my stomach. Right. It's just a natural way for your hands to lay. And what I do is I focus and I want to make sure that my hand on my stomach is the one that's moving up and down, and not my hand on my chest. And by doing that alone, I will take anywhere from 5 to 10 deep breaths and I hold it for a couple seconds and then I let it all out. And I try to let my exhale be longer than my inhale. And by doing that, that's how I do that. I don't know your example, but having my hand there, also the thing for me that does is that takes my mind's attention away from what's causing the anxiety. And it helps me focus on my hand on my stomach to make sure that now all of my thoughts are going towards taking deep breaths, what I would call the quote unquote, the right way or the diaphragmatic breathing way.
Yeah, and that's spot on to what Marissa talked about in her meditation. If you're in a spot where you can't lay down, the way she explains it is sitting up, doing the same thing. You know, hand here and hand here, and the stomach hand while you're sitting up is the hand you want, going in and out, and you want your chest hand staying very still while you're breathing. So you're breathing more from your stomach, your diaphragm, than you are from your lungs, your chest, and that helps bringing the focus on that breathing. Another exercise that Jamie talks about, and people may have seen this in a previous video, is counting. So, and he says, be very purposeful on your fingers. So you start off by really watching your fingers, doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 2. And of course, doing it slower than I was just doing it, but just keep counting up to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. Again, very slow, very purposeful, and very focused, really watching your fingers make that connection every time, because that will help you bring your attention to your hand and your fingers and not what else is stressing you out at that point in time. So that's probably on and above the diaphragmatic breathing, another suggestion people could take away. Yeah. And then one more thing I want to add, you mentioned, I'm not a doctor similar to you, but you mentioned caffeine. I did some reading, and similar but different to the caffeine intake is I started drinking green tea. Green tea has, and I may pronounce this wrong, L-theanine in it, which L-theanine has been found to help calm. And so, right now, every day anymore, I got a tumbler here with green tea in it, and that's just my daily drink, that and water. And that, I can't contribute it to that being the source to which has helped me, but I cannot help but to think between caffeine reduction. Now, green tea has caffeine, but lesser amount. But between lesser caffeine and some of the green tea, that's definitely helped me as well. Again, not a doctor, not saying it's to help anyone else, just giving suggestions about what I've done for people for educational purposes.
One thing, Mark, I think that's important to notice is that our brains are still a lot of people say very primitive, still back kind of caveman type brains, and they have been. Really, when you have anxiety, it's alarms in your head. It's alarms in your body saying, hey, watch out, there might be a saber-toothed tiger. Or, there might be a dinosaur that's chasing you. And it's important to sit there. Vast majority of the time, we're not under attack. And I think it's important, at least for me, I had to sit there and as those alarms were going off, it's not saying anything's wrong. It's like, hey, be aware, watch out, look around, what's going on. It was critical for me to sit there and say, I'm okay. Right. I'm safe. I'm okay. And once I was saying, I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm safe, then that also brought a sense of calm to me, which also helped with a lot of the anxiety as well.
Good. I think this is all useful information and hopefully can help someone to some capacity understand or relate to what they're experiencing as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation.
Yes, I agree. Thanks, Heath. Thanks for listening. I hope you found that discussion helpful and interesting. If there are any topics you would like to hear discussed, head over to take2minutes.org and use the Contact Us form to submit your suggestions. Also, if you appreciate our content, sign up for an account at take2minutes.org. Subscriptions help us to continue generating new content. Thanks again.